Royalty. Royalty. Power to the chosen people.
So last week we did the word for divorce. So you always have to have balance. You know, you throw something out there and everybody's like, well, where's marriage? And I'm like, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. Okay, so I'll kind of explain to you guys how I'm going to do this. Actually, I took this page. I'm writing another book, and this one is called A Wise Woman Builds Her House. So if anybody's watched the podcast, or as you lovely women here in the room, were actually there, we went through for about, how many months is that? Maybe like 3 months?
3 months.
About 3 months, and we went through and started in Genesis, or Bereshit, and we worked through this idea of the foundation of the woman and the man and the home. And so what the book is taking about 52 Hebrew words, and they're all based around how we live in our families, because that's really the first unit where we see things functioning, and taking them and actually giving functional definitions to how they work. People say, oh, I'm a wife. Okay, I know that's a woman and she has children, but what else does that encompass? Okay, so you'll get to see kind of how the book is going to work when I do this word. So the word for marriage. So there's a couple of things. There's all of these arguments online about people with, if you're married, you can't be married again, and then this, and you're this, and you're this, and it's all based on, we talked about this last week, about taking things out of context. And not dealing with the, like in the men's class earlier today when they did the review, about assessing the situation properly, okay? So the first thing we're gonna do just off top is that, can a person, based upon what we dealt with last week, can a person be married again?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, okay, so we can just, move past that. If you have an issue with that, just check out the last video. Okay, and I'll just give you a verse for that. 2 Corinthians 5:17, it says, and when you are in Hamashiach, you're a new creature. Because people go, well, I was married before, I had kids before I got in Torah. New creature, okay? Just new creature. When somebody comes at you with an argument, new creature. Okay, so there's 1, 2, 3, I have 4 words. One I've already did a video on. So when you look at marriage, everybody just goes in normally in Hebrew and looks up the word for marriage. And they go, oh, this is marriage. But there are components or building blocks or foundations that give you what marriage actually is. And they're found in different words that probably to you don't relate directly to marriage, so you'll never see them, okay? The first word is this word right here. It's het. And it's kind of rough for me right on the screen. I know somebody somewhere who is, you know, writing Hebrew like, why does it look so terrible? Okay, het, tav, looks bad, and final noon. And the word literally means bridegroom, right? So the first thing you get is bridegroom, and we get it in Deuteronomy chapter 7, verse 3. And it says, he's talking about who they should marry, who the people of Israel should marry. So Yah deals with that first. Before you get into marriage, he goes, I'm going to tell you who you should marry. And he says, neither shall thou make marriages with them. Thy daughters shall thou not give to their sons, nor his daughters shall thou take unto thy sons, right? So this idea of bridegroom is that you have somebody giving or receiving something. Okay, in a Western culture, we do things very backwards. I'm sure if you know any amount of Hebrew, you know we do things very backwards. In Western culture, when you go to a wedding, the man stands here and the bride walks. Well, that's not Hebraic, right? It's flipped around. The woman waits, and then the groom leaves the chamber, and he comes, right? It's different.
Hallelujah.
And then you see it, obviously, if you see that, you can see it all throughout Scripture. You definitely see it with the Hamashiach. It's flipped around. You prepare, and then you adorn yourself, and you wait. And then he leaves his chamber, and then he comes to get his bride, right? Okay. So the idea of a bridegroom, the reason why a bridegroom is important because he has a function. What he does is he relates to the bride, but then he ties together for, this is the very, very important word, mutual satisfaction, right? Mutual. It's not for one person more than the other. It's mutual. And the reason why Yah says don't bind with these other people is because it's mutual. If you take a Canaanite wife, then you're going to get a portion of that mutual satisfaction from her culture. It says don't do it. Don't do it either way. Okay, the next word we have for that word, it is actually chatan, and it has to do with wedding. So there is a wedding when people get married. You have this whole doctrine going around that if I have sex with you, guess what? We're married. Okay, you did a portion of the marriage process, but that doesn't necessarily make a person then married. There's stuff that, more things that have to be done. Okay, so you have the bridegroom. That's from Psalm 19:5. It talks about the bridegroom coming out of his chamber. You have delightful family relationships come with marriage, okay? And that's from Genesis 19:12. And also this word has to do with infant circumcision, infant at circumcision, because that infant then becomes or is then tied into a family. That covenant then makes that person tied to a family. So there's levels to just that one word. Okay, the next word. And I always tell people about Hebrew. Hebrew is very, very, very straightforward. So it's not me being uncouth, or I don't want anybody in there clutching their pearls. But Hebrew's just like that. I'm sorry ahead of time. Sorry, but not sorry. Okay, the next word is Adon, right? And so you'll see something very. Actually, let me go back. It's Atan. I got one more before this one. So Atan. And you'll see there's a bunch of final nouns, and I'll point it out at the end of these words. And then this is actually the word for breast, and it literally means delicate breast. That's what it means, and it means to sustain. So you guys remember the verse where it says, "And be ravished with her, with the wife of your youth," blah blah blah. Okay, so that's where that comes from. There's an idea of sexual sustainability in a relationship. It's not something that stops. One of the verses we brought up before was that idea of what a man is required to give a woman. So you have to give her food, right? Clothing, and then marital satisfaction. That's what sustains the relationship. So people going around talking about, I had this guy on my YouTube channel. I don't read the comments anymore, but when I was, he said, "You are violating Torah because once you sleep with your husband, you're not supposed to ever sleep with him again." What? Now you're committing adultery because you're sleeping with the person. I was like, you try for a second, you'd be like, okay, I want to understand you. No, I don't understand you. So I'm telling you, you think that I bring up this stuff because it's not real. This stuff is real. People believe this stuff, and they got people. Okay, so the idea of delicate breast. So that's from Job 21:4. There's verses for all these. The one that I'm really, really going to lay heavily on is this idea of, and I'll see if anybody catches the word. It looks like this. It's ayin, dalet, and then another final noon. Okay. If you don't know anything about noon, I'm going to bring it out now. Noon is the fish, seed, activity, and life. These are the life of the marriage. All these words have to do with the life of the marriage. The very interesting thing about a final noon, it's at the end of a word, but it makes it final. There's some words that end in like a noon. When it's at the end, it's final. This is what it's supposed to be. This seed is it. Okay? Okay, so this word, aleph, dalet, noon. Anybody want to take a shot at it? Ayin, I'm sorry. Ayin, dalet, noon. Close. What if I tell you sound, and then what is it? Ed. Eden. Exactly. Yes. Yeah, exactly. People say this all the time, but they don't have any substantial evidence to prove. They say marriage is supposed to be like heaven on earth, right? Right? That's what it's supposed to be like, but nobody can prove it because they're like, well, how? Because when Yah gives what marriage is supposed to be like, he refers back to this picture. You have so many people who negate the picture in Eden because of the fall. Yah didn't say, and now none of the stuff I wanted for you before, just throw that all out the window. No, you have to work a little bit harder at it, but this is the standard, okay? So I'll give you it. So it means to satisfy all needs, that word eden, right? And it's not just feminine. It's masculine and feminine. So if you take off this last one and you put just the noon like this, and then you put a hey, right? Let me make it right. Make it right. Okay, you put the noon and you put a hey, that's the feminine. So edena, eden masculine, edena feminine. Not a lot of words go both ways like that, but this one does. So this idea of satisfying all needs goes both ways. Okay? So I'll put it back like it was. What'd you say? Okay, it means to Genesis 18:12. Okay? Genesis 2:8 and Genesis 19:12 all deal with this idea of satisfying all needs. It means delight and giving joy. Okay, marriage is to delight and give joy. Proverbs 29:17. This one is hilarious. Now, The story, you don't really see it immediately, because the story of when Amalek comes, and he's like, he comes and he has, in Hebrew it says he has dainties, but in English it says he has shackles. So the word where this is translated means expensive shackles. I thought that was funny. Okay, so, right. Expensive shackles. Okay, it also deals with fancy food. So you're giving your best. I've seen some interesting plates on Facebook and Instagram where you got like a paper plate with that's not really delicate. Like you got 4 starches and 1 protein, no vegetable. Like it's not balanced. Fancy food. So I try to garnish it up, try to make it look nice, fancy food. Okay, and then the idea of pleasure, right? The idea that comes from Psalm 36:9. Okay, and this word literally means all put together, the delights of worshiping. So Eden is like the delights of worshiping. Marriage and the intimacy in marriage is likened to worship. So don't worship halfway. You wouldn't do that, right? If it's a reflection of Yah and Israel and the Hamashiach and the bride, then you don't half step. You go all the way. You go all in. What you holding back for? What you saving something for? You go all in. You lay it all out all the time. Okay? We've already done this word, adon, and so you can go back to the last one, but it means to master. So the idea of a marriage, I tell people all the time, don't get into a marriage with a person if you don't want that person to be your master. Right on. Pick a good master. Amen. And then you don't have a problem serving a good master. But if you pick a bad master, you're still bound to Torah, to doing what you're supposed to do according to Torah. Okay, and so that word for Eden also deals with sustaining, so to be sustained. So the marriage joins the bride to the groom's family. Okay? We got it backwards again. You have the man, and he joins this family, and then all the women in her family run him. Right? It's like, off. No, it's the other way around. If you guys want to come be a part of this, be a part of it. So I'll prove it. Go with me to Genesis 24, and I'll give you some background, and then I'll just read the verse. So, Abraham is like, my son needs a wife, but I got some rules. I don't want a Canaanite wife. So he's already obeying Torah. Remember, there's no written law in Abraham's time. And I just read to you out of the written law where he says, don't take wives from the Canaanites. Abraham had already figured that out. He's like, y'all don't want us to have wives from these people, okay? So there was law before there was a written law, and people followed it, okay? So in 24, he says, go, tell the servant, go find a wife for my son. But don't take him with you. That's what you're not going to do. I told you I'm not ever going back there, and neither is he. Second thing is, so a servant turns around and he goes, okay, I got all your instructions. He swears, he makes a pact. And so he says this, 24:8, he says, if the woman will not be willing to follow thee, then go back up one verse. He says, so verse 7, then Yahuwah of heaven will, which took me from my father's house and from the land of my kindred, and which spake unto me, and that swear unto me, saying, unto thy seed will I give the land, he shall send his angel before thee, and thou shalt take a wife unto my son from thence. And if the woman will not be willing to follow thee, then thou shalt be clear from this my oath. Only bring not my son thither again. Right? And he said, and the servant put his hand under the thigh of Abraham his master, and swore unto him concerning the matter. So what he asked him before, and I think it's in... here it is, verse 5. He said, and the servant said unto him, peradventure the woman will not be willing to follow me unto this land. Must I needs bring thy son again into the land from whence thou camest? He said, oh no. If she don't want to follow, don't bring her. And he's not going. Find her. Yeah, you are not bound. Don't try to fandangle and force her. If she don't want to come, don't bring her. And that's how Yah is. Like you said earlier in class, he says, we swear to do all these things that you've asked us. And that was pretty much it. He's like, if you don't want to do it, you're not bound by it. But if you say you're going to do it now, you have to do it. Okay, so that is the idea of marriage. The marriage begins with the bridegroom. The bride is then presented to him. He didn't go over there and say, oh, let me go and meet her. No, bring him to him. And these are the things that are required. And this is the picture of what Yah has. And so you see it in the end where you have the great wedding ceremony in Revelation. He's like, okay, let me present this bride without spot or wrinkle. And you wait. He says, I'm waiting. I'm waiting for you to get it right, and then I'll come. I'm not coming before my time. right? Okay, so that's marriage, that complete picture. So you have the balance now between what marriage is supposed to be and what divorce is. So when you get a person that gets a divorce, it's because you failed at all of these standards and all of these requirements. Yah's not requiring a person to not experience this because of religion. So many people stay in situations that are not this because religion is like, well, you're married, you stay married. It's like, no, no, no. We got rules, and these are the rules. And so if you don't want to do this, and we've already agreed to do this, then we can't do this thing together. Okay, that's it.
Royalty. Royalty. Power to the chosen people.